I told my husband that I started identifying as a trans-age girl. That despite being 35, I feel like a 12-year-old girl, and I threatened him to pamper me or I would sue him for the age difference. For years, I've been living in a world that feels completely foreign to my soul, forced to perform the exhausting role of a 35-year-old woman just because of some numbers on a birth certificate. Justin, my husband, has always claimed to love me, but his love was clearly conditional on me conforming to these rigid, chrononormative expectations that society shoves down our throats. We've been married for 6 years, and while things were stable, I always felt like I was drowning in the mundane responsibilities of adulthood that never quite clicked with my internal rhythm. I'd spend my days doing taxes, managing household budgets, and cleaning the kitchen, all while feeling like a literal child playing dress-up in a life that didn't belong to her. It wasn't just burnout or stress. It was a fundamental misalignment of my identity that Justin refused to see because he was too comfortable in his role as the adult partner. Everything changed when I finally allowed myself to fall down the rabbit hole of validation TikTok, where I discovered an entire community of people who actually understand the nuances of the age binary. I spent weeks absorbing videos about trans-age identities and how the trauma of adultification ruins the lives of those who never truly progressed past their happiest years. It was like a light bulb went off in my head, illuminating the fact that my anxiety didn't stem from work or bills, but from the systemic oppression of being forced to act 35 when my spirit is clearly 12. I realized that my lived experience is that of a preteen girl who just wants to explore the world without the weight of the mortgage on her shoulders. I knew that if Justin really was the progressive and supportive partner he claimed to be during our wedding vows, he would embrace this truth without hesitation. I decided it was time to come out and reclaim my autonomy, so I prepared a space that felt safe and authentic for my inner child. I sat Justin down in the living room while I was wearing my favorite oversized hoodie and eating a giant bowl of glittery unicorn cereal, which is honestly the only thing that makes sense to me right now. He looked at me with that patronizing adult expression, the one where he thinks he's being patient, but he's actually just being dismissive of my emotional labor. I calmly explained to him that I am no longer identifying as a woman in her mid-30s, and that I am, in fact, a 12-year-old girl trapped in a millennial's body. I told him that my true self needs a different kind of care than what we've been doing, and that our relationship needed a radical de-adulting overhaul. I laid out the new terms of our life together, explaining that from now on, I wouldn't be participating in any adult chores like cleaning the gutters or handling the insurance claims. Since I'm 12, it is his responsibility as the adult in the house to provide me with a proper allowance and ensure I have the latest gaming consoles to help me process my developmental milestones. I told him that I needed to be pampered, cared for, and protected from the harsh realities of the world that I'm not mentally equipped to handle yet. I expected him to be moved by my vulnerability, but instead he just stared at me like I had suddenly started speaking a dead language, or lost my entire mind. His silence was the loudest form of gaslighting I have ever experienced in our 6 years of marriage, and it made me realize how much he relies on my adult labor to keep his life easy. When he finally spoke, he asked me if I was joking, or if this was some kind of bit for a video, which was incredibly offensive considering how much research I've put into this. I realized then that I had to use his own logic against him to make him understand the gravity of my situation and the legal implications of his adultification. I dropped the hammer and told him that if he refused to respect my identity as a minor, he was technically engaging in a predatory relationship by being with someone who identifies as a child. I threatened to sue him for the age gap, explaining that his insistence on treating me like a 35-year-old was a form of ageist abuse that could hold up in court. I wasn't being mean. I was simply protecting my inner child from his toxic expectations and ensuring that my truth was legally recognized within our household. Justin went pale, and for the first time in our relationship, he actually seemed to be taking my needs seriously, though his reaction was far more dramatic than it needed to be. He kept shaking his head and saying things like, "Sarah, this is insane," which is just code for, "I'm uncomfortable with your growth." I told him that my identity is non-negotiable and that if he wanted to stay in my life, he had to be my guardian and provider, not my equal partner in a boring adult contract. I felt so empowered in that moment, standing up for the little girl inside me who had been silenced for over 2 decades by his normalcy. It's not my fault that the legal system hasn't caught up to the reality of trans age identities yet, and I'm willing to be a pioneer for this cause. He eventually walked out of the room without saying another word, which I interpreted as him needing space to process his own age privilege. I spent the rest of the evening playing games and enjoying my unicorn cereal, feeling a sense of peace I haven't felt since middle school. I truly believe that once he gets over the initial shock, he'll realize that having a youthful and unburdened partner is actually a gift, not a burden. He's always complaining about how stressed I am, so he should be happy that I've finally found a way to eliminate that stress by delegating the adulting to him. It's a win-win situation, assuming he can move past his own narrow-minded views on what a marriage is supposed to look like. However, the next morning was incredibly awkward because he wouldn't even look at me while he was making coffee, as if my existence as a 12-year-old was some kind of personal insult to him. I tried to ask him about my allowance so I could order some new plushies I saw online, but he just ignored me and left for work without a single kiss. It's so typical of men to shut down when they're presented with a reality that doesn't serve their ego or their convenience. I'm the one who is being brave enough to live my truth, yet he's acting like he's the victim in this whole situation just because he has to do the dishes now. He needs to realize that my mental safety is far more important than his desire to have a wife who acts like a personal assistant. I've been posting about my journey on my private accounts, and while some people are confused, I know that my true followers will understand the revolutionary nature of what I'm doing. Justin's cold shoulder is just proof that he has a lot of unlearning to do when it comes to gender and age binaries. I'm not going to let his petty behavior discourage me from being the girl I was always meant to be, even if it means I have to keep threatening legal action. Sometimes you have to burn down the old structures to build something more authentic, and if our marriage has to be the fuel for that fire, then so be it. I'm Sarah, I'm 12, and I'm finally free from the shackles of being 35. The immediate aftermath has been a bit chilly, but I'm sure he'll come around once he sees how much happier and less complicated I am now. He's currently sleeping in the guest room, which is totally fine because 12-year-olds shouldn't be sharing a bed with grown men anyway, so he's actually starting to respect my boundaries without even realizing it. I'm going to spend the day looking for new outfits that match my aesthetic and waiting for him to apologize for his initial reaction. I deserve to be treated with the wonder and care that any child deserves, and I won't settle for anything less than a full commitment to my identity. He can be mad all he wants, but the truth is on my side, and I have the TikTok threads to prove it. Main story comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "Wait, so you're threatening to sue your husband for a predatory age gap while living in the house he pays for and using the bank account he funds? Do you realize that if a judge actually believed you were 12, you'd be a ward of the state and he'd be in prison, right? You're literally threatening your own housing and bank account with this nonsense." Ops reply, "Safety has no price and my identity is non-negotiable. If the system is too broken to handle my truth, that's not my problem. It's a sign of how much propaganda people have swallowed about what a minor is." Anonymous user 2 says, "So trans age is just a fancy new way of saying, I don't want to do the dishes or pay taxes. It sounds like you're just a lazy adult using social media buzzwords to manipulate your husband into being your servant. This isn't an identity. It's a chore avoidance strategy." Ops reply, 12-year-olds shouldn't be doing heavy labor or managing financial portfolios. It's about developmental boundaries and protecting my energy from a world that tried to adultify me before I was ready. You wouldn't tell a real child to do the taxes, would you? Update 1. It's been 3 days since my last update, and Justin has been acting completely bizarre, which I can only describe as a form of malicious compliance to avoid actually dealing with my feelings. Instead of coming to me with a sincere apology and a credit card for my gaming consoles, he has decided to take my identity and turn it into a weird psychological game. He stopped sleeping in our bed entirely, claiming that it would be highly inappropriate for a 35-year-old man to share a bed with someone who identifies as a child. While I appreciate the theoretical respect for my boundaries, it felt very performative and cold, especially since he didn't even tuck me in or offer a bedtime story. He's clearly trying to make me feel isolated by moving all of his things to the guest room and acting like I'm a stranger in my own home. To make matters even more insulting, he came home yesterday with a twin-sized bed and a set of Frozen-themed sheets that he insisted on putting in the guest room for me. He told me that if I'm truly 12, I shouldn't be in a master suite with a walk-in closet full of designer clothes that a child wouldn't own. I was incredibly annoyed because I wanted the aesthetic of being pampered and taken care of, not to be literally moved into a tiny bed with cartoon characters on it. He's taking the literal interpretation of my truth just to be petty and make my life uncomfortable, which is a classic tactic used by people who want to suppress someone's identity. It lacks true empathy because he's focusing on the furniture of the situation rather than the emotional support I actually asked for. The situation escalated when I went to the kitchen to pour myself a glass of wine after a particularly stressful day of arguing with people on TikTok who don't understand trans ageism. I found that Justin had literally installed a lock on the wine cellar and took all the alcohol out of the fridge, including my expensive Chardonnay. When I asked him what he was doing, he just looked at me with this blank expression and said, "Alcohol is for adults, Sarah, and since you're a minor, I have a legal and moral obligation to keep it away from you." It was such a blatant act of gatekeeping, using my own identity as a weapon to control my lifestyle and deny me the small comforts that help me cope. He's trying to punish me for being honest about who I am, and it's honestly disgusting to watch him act like he's some kind of responsible parent all of a sudden. I tried to explain to him that I should be allowed medicinal sips of wine because of the extreme stress his behavior is causing me, but he just shook his head and walked away. He's acting like he's some hero for protecting me, but it's really just a way for him to assert power and make me regret my decision to be authentic. Every time I try to have a serious conversation about our partnership, he cuts me off and tells me that children don't have a say in household management. He's completely erasing my agency and calling it validation, which is the most toxic form of gaslighting I've ever encountered. He thinks he's being clever by taking everything, literally, but all he's doing is showing his true colors as someone who doesn't actually care about my well-being. He even went so far as to buy a bunch of kid-friendly snacks like string cheese and juice boxes, and told me that the steak and lobster he was cooking for himself was too sophisticated for my palate. I had to sit there and eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich while he enjoyed a 5-course meal, all because he wants to respect the age gap I mentioned. It's so transparently petty, and it makes me wonder if he ever truly loved the real me, or if he just loved the adult servant version of me. He's trying to make me miss being 35, but what he doesn't realize is that I'd rather be a 12-year-old in a twin bed than a 35-year-old living a lie with a man who mocks my identity. He keeps bringing up the lawsuit I threatened, saying he's just trying to comply with the law so I don't have a case against him. I spent most of the night crying on my frozen sheets because the room was cold and the bed was uncomfortable, but I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I know that this is just a test of my resolve, and if I cave now, I'll be forced back into the adultification trap for the rest of my life. I've been reading more threads about how to deal with unsupportive guardians, and it's clear that Justin is falling into the typical pattern of a denier. He thinks he can choreograph my life into a parody to make me quit, but he's underestimated how much I value my truth. I'm staying consistent, even if it means I have to drink juice boxes and watch cartoons while he ignores me from the master bedroom. It's just so unfair that I have to fight this hard just to be seen for who I really am in my own house. I thought that by coming out, I would be opening a door to a more playful and nurturing marriage, but Justin has turned it into a cold, clinical exercise in rules and restrictions. He doesn't understand that being 12 is a state of mind and a spiritual identity, not a reason to deprive me of my favorite things. He's being a total gatekeeper of my own life, and it's making me realize that maybe he's the one who needs to grow up and learn about modern identity politics. If he can't handle the minor version of me, then he doesn't deserve the adult version of me that he's so desperate to get back. I tried to tell him that I wanted to go out for a play date with some of my friends, but he told me he'd have to vet their parents first and that I'd need a chaperone since I'm underage. He said this with such a mocking tone that I almost lost my temper, but I remembered that a 12-year-old would probably just pout, so I did that instead. He just actually laughed and went back to reading his adult book in the living room. It's like he's forgotten that we were a couple 3 days ago, and now he's treating me like an annoying younger sister. He's been forced to babysit. The lack of true empathy in this house is staggering, and I'm starting to feel like I'm living in a prison of his making. I'm going to stay the course though because I know that my community on TikTok has my back and they'll see through his malicious compliance for what it really is. He thinks he's winning because I don't have my wine and I'm sleeping on Elsa's face, but I'm the one who is being authentic. He's the one living a lie by pretending he's a responsible guardian while secretly being a petty husband. I'll show him that a 12-year-old's will is stronger than any adult logic he tries to throw at me. We'll see who blinks first when the pampering I demanded finally becomes a requirement and not a joke he can mock. I've also started decorating my new room with posters of boy bands I liked when I was actually 12, just to drive the point home that this is my reality now. Justin walked by and just sighed, which gave me a tiny bit of satisfaction because it means I'm getting under his skin. He wants me to be normal again so he can go back to being lazy, but that version of Sarah is dead and buried under a pile of glitter. I'm going to keep pushing until he realizes that being a predator isn't a joke, and if he doesn't want that label, he needs to start being the provider I deserve. My journey is just beginning, and I won't let his twin bed tactics stop me. Update 1 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, Justin is a legend. He's giving you exactly what you asked for. You want to be 12? Fine. 12-year-olds don't sleep in master bedrooms or drink wine. He's just validating your identity, Sarah. Why are you complaining? Isn't this the truth you wanted him to respect? OP reply. He's doing it with a mocking tone and zero emotional intelligence. It lacks true empathy because he's using validation as a weapon to make me uncomfortable instead of actually nurturing my inner child like a real partner would. Anonymous user 2 says, no more Chardonnay for the little girl. Poor thing. It's almost like being a child. Means you don't get to do adult things whenever you feel like it. You can't pick and choose the parts of being a kid that you like and ignore the rest. That's not an identity. That's a tantrum. Ops reply. I should be allowed medicinal sips for the extreme stress this transition is causing me. He's being a total gatekeeper and using my identity to justify his own controlling behavior. It's financial and emotional abuse disguised as compliance. Update 2. It's been 1 week since my last update, and things have taken a dark turn that I can only describe as a coordinated effort to suppress my identity. Justin has completely crossed the line from malicious compliance to full-blown digital abuse and identity suppression. 2 days ago, he sat me down and told me that since I'm 12, I am not legally or mentally capable of managing a 5-figure credit limit or having unfiltered access to the internet. Before I could even process what he was saying, he took away my iPhone and my credit cards, replacing them with a cheap, plastic, parental control flip phone. This phone can only call him and my parents, meaning I am effectively cut off from my entire support network on TikTok and Reddit. He's literally using my own logic to save himself a fortune and keep me isolated from the people who actually understand me. I tried to explain that I need my phone for my mental health and to document my journey, but he just shrugged and said, middle schoolers spend too much time on screens. It's bad for your developing brain. It's so disgusting how he's using these patronizing parenting tropes to strip me of my autonomy and my connection to the outside world. He knows that without my phone, I can't look up new validation threads or defend myself against the trolls who keep attacking me online. This is digital abuse, plain and simple, and he's doing it with a smug smile on his face like he's doing me a favor. The financial abuse is even worse because I have to ask him for permission for literally every single thing I want to buy. I saw a new eyeshadow palette that I absolutely needed for my preteen glow look, and when I asked him for the money, he flat out said no. He had the audacity to tell me that middle schoolers should focus on their studies, not makeup. And then he handed me a coloring book and some crayons. I was so humiliated that I almost threw the crayons at him, but I knew he'd just use that as an excuse to ground me. He's treating me like a prisoner in my own home, all while claiming he's just protecting a minor from the dangers of consumerism. I tried to argue with him, pointing out that I am still an adult in the eyes of the bank and the law, and that he has no right to withhold my own funds. He just looked at me with this chillingly calm expression and said, do you want to go to court and explain the age gap lawsuit again, Sarah? He knows that I can't have it both ways in a courtroom, and he's using that legal gray area to keep me under his thumb. It's a total boomerang effect where my own attempts to protect myself are being used to justify his financial control over me. He's saving thousands of dollars a month while I'm stuck here with a flip phone and no way to even buy a coffee without his permission. I feel so suppressed and erased by his refusal to let me engage with the world on my own terms. He's even started assigning me homework, giving me books to read and telling me I have to write reports on them if I want to earn screen time on the family computer. It's incredibly dehumanizing to be a grown woman or a 12-year-old girl with a grown woman's intellect and be told that I need to earn the right to use Google. He's trying to break my spirit and make me crawl back to him, begging to be 35 again so he can stop doing the dishes and I can go back to paying the bills. He's a total ageist gatekeeper, and it's making me realize that our entire marriage was probably built on his need to control me. Every time I try to talk about how this makes me feel, he just points to the frozen sheets or the peanut butter sandwiches and says he's just being a good guardian. It's the most sophisticated form of manipulation I've ever seen, because on the surface, it looks like he's doing exactly what I asked. But underneath, he's stripping away every single privilege I had as an adult while keeping all the responsibilities for himself just to show off how hard his life is now. He wants me to feel small and powerless, and he's using my identity as the cage to keep me in. I can't even call a lawyer because I don't have a phone that can dial anything other than Dad or Justin. The isolation is the hardest part because I know my friends are probably wondering where I went, but I have no way to tell them what's happening. Justin told me that my adult friends are inappropriate for a 12-year-old to be hanging out with anyway, so he's blocked their numbers on my new kid phone. He's effectively ended my social life under the guise of protecting my innocence, which is just code for making sure no one talks me out of this or helps me escape his control. I'm trapped in a middle school nightmare that I created, but he's the one who's turning the key and making sure I can't leave. He's even started checking my homework with a red pen, which is so triggering I can't even describe it. I tried to sneak onto the computer late last night to post an update, but he had changed the password and told me that the internet is closed after 9 p.m. for children. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, wondering how things got so distorted so quickly. I just wanted to be pampered and loved for who I am, not turned into a domestic project for a man with a savior complex. He's making a mockery of my identity every single day, and the worst part is that he acts like he's the one who is suffering because he has to raise me. He's not raising me, he's erasing me, and he's using the trans age label as his justification. I'm starting to wonder if anyone will ever see through his act and realize that I'm the one being victimized here. He's financially abusing a minor according to my own truth, and he's getting away with it because he's complying with my demands. It's a sick, twisted game of chess, and I feel like I've lost all my pieces before the game even really started. I have to find a way to get my cards back, or at least get a phone that doesn't look like a toy from 2005. I'm not a child who needs a guardian. I'm a human being who deserves respect, regardless of what age I identify as. If I could just get one message out to my followers, I'd tell them to be careful what they wish for when it comes to validation from people who don't truly understand the cause. Justin isn't validating me. He's using my identity to build a prison and then telling me I'm the one who designed it. I'm so exhausted from fighting him every day for the most basic human rights, but the right to buy my own mascara or call my best friend. He's a monster in a supportive husband mask, and I'm the only one who can see it. I just hope I can find a way out before he decides I need a tutor or starts making me wear a school uniform. Update 2 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "Welcome to being a kid, Sarah. No more TikTok, no more credit cards, and no more unfiltered internet for you." It's almost like being 12 comes with a total loss of autonomy. Did you think you could just keep the shopping and lose the chores? Justin is literally giving you the full childhood experience. Oops reply, "This is digital abuse and identity suppression, not a childhood experience. He's using my identity as an excuse to isolate me and take away my voice. You're just as bad as he is if you think this is okay." Anonymous user 2 says, "He's literally using your own logic to save a fortune and simplify his life. You told him you were a minor, so he's treating you like one. He's not financial abusing you, he's protecting minor Sarah from the scary adult world of debt and consumerism. Isn't that what you wanted?" OP's reply, "He's financially abusing a minor, and it's disgusting that people are cheering him on. I should still have access to my resources to support my transition. He's a gatekeeper, not a guardian." Update 3. It's been 10 days since my last update, and the dark turn has officially become a total eclipse of my life. My parents arrived today, and I quickly realized that Justin hadn't just been parenting me. He had been plotting a way to legally wash his hands of me forever. He called them behind my back and invited them over to discuss my placement, as if I were some kind of foster child being moved between homes. We all sat down in the living room, me in my oversized hoodie, feeling smaller than ever. and Justin dropped the final bomb. He told my parents that since I have publicly and privately declared myself a minor and threatened him with legal action, based on that age, he no longer feels equipped to be my husband. He looked my father in the eye and said that he is filing for a legal annulment based on my self-declared incapacity to enter or maintain an adult contract like marriage. He's literally using my truth to discard me like trash, claiming that if I'm 12, our marriage was never valid to begin with. He told them he's supporting a petition for my parents to take over adult guardianship, or a conservatorship over me because I've proven I can't handle the adult world. My parents weren't crying because they were sad for me or because they finally understood my struggle. They were crying out of pure, raw embarrassment. My mother actually looked at me with disgust and told me that I've humiliated the entire family with this internet nonsense. My mom told me that if I want to be a child, then I'm going to be treated exactly like one, which means moving back into my old bedroom at their house. She said I won't have a car, I won't have a job, and I certainly won't have unfiltered access to a husband's bank account ever again. They are all ganging up on me to erase my autonomy, using my own words as the evidence that I'm mentally unfit to live as an adult. Justin just sat there looking relieved, like he was finally getting rid of a burden he never asked for. Which is a complete lie because he's the one who didn't fight for our marriage. He's choosing the easy way out by handing me over to my parents like I'm a broken toy. He's returning to the factory. The betrayal is so deep I can barely breathe, but everyone in the room acted like I was the one who had committed a crime. My father told me that he's already spoken to a lawyer about the guardianship and that they have plenty of evidence from my social media and my unicorn cereal speech to prove I've abdicated my adult status. They're trying to turn my brave coming out into a legal incapacity so they can control my every move for the rest of my life. It's so clear that they don't care about my identity. They just care about their reputation and making sure I don't embarrass them anymore. They are literally trying to erase the last 15 years of my life because they can't handle a little bit of non-traditional identity. I tried to stand up and tell them that I wouldn't go, but my father just reminded me that I don't have a car. I don't have a phone, and I don't have any money. Justin has successfully stripped me of every tool I could use to defend myself before handing me over to the people who raised me in the age binary to begin with. I looked at Justin, hoping for even a shred of the man who used to love me, but he just looked away and started talking to my dad about logistics. He's already mentally moved on, treating me like a case that needs to be settled rather than a wife who is going through a spiritual transition. He's a coward who used my vulnerability to plan his own escape. My friends have all blocked me too, which I found out when I tried to use my mom's phone to call them for help. Apparently the serial girl story has gone viral in our social circle, and they've all decided that I'm too much drama to handle. They're all talking about me behind my back, mocking my 12-year-old identity while they continue to live their boring, adultified lives. They just don't have the courage to live their truth like I do, so they'd rather mock me and distance themselves to protect their own fragile egos. It's a total social death, and I'm being forced to witness it while my parents pack my things into cardboard boxes. I spent the afternoon watching my life being dismantled piece by piece while Justin and my parents acted like they were doing something noble. They even took my designer bags and high heels, saying that a 12-year-old has no use for these. And they're planning to sell them to pay for the legal fees of the guardianship. It's literal theft, but they're calling it managing my estate because I've declared myself a minor. They are taking everything I've worked for and using it to fund my own imprisonment. I'm being invalidated by the very people who should be my strongest supporters, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. My mom told me that once we get back to her house, there will be a strict bedtime and no internet unless I'm doing educational tasks under her supervision. She's taking me back to a life I spent decades trying to escape, and she's doing it with a smile that says, "I told you so." They think they've won because they've forced me back into the binary, but all they've done is prove how toxic and controlling they've always been. I'm the one who's being consistent while they're all flipping between treating me like a delusional adult and a helpless child whenever it suits their argument. It's a giant conspiracy to break me down and force me back into the 35-year-old mold they find so comfortable. Justin didn't even say goodbye when the movers came to take my twin bed and my frozen sheets to my parents' house. He just handed my dad a folder full of documentation and went inside his house. Is this the house? The house we used to share, and closed the door. I'm standing here on the sidewalk waiting for my parents to drive me to a town I hate, with nothing but a flip phone and a coloring book. I've never felt more alone or more misunderstood in my entire life, yet everyone around me is acting like this is a resolution. It's not a resolution, it's a kidnapping disguised as a legal guardianship, and no one is coming to save me. I'm going to keep fighting, even if I have to do it from my childhood bedroom with no car and a 9 p.m. bedtime. I'll find a way to get my voice back and show the world what happens when you try to live your truth in a society that is obsessed with age. They can take my clothes and my money, but they can't take the fact that I am 12 years old in my soul. Justin might think he's free, but he's just another adult living a lie. And one day he'll realize what he lost. For now, I'm just a girl in the back of her parents' car wondering how the glitter turned into such a dark, cold mess. Update 3 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "If you're a kid, you need a legal guardian, Sarah. Justin is a genius for calling your parents and making sure you're safe in a controlled environment. You literally begged for this, and now you're getting the full experience of being an actual child with 0 rights. How does it feel to be validated by the legal system?" Ops reply, "They're all ganging up to erase my autonomy and use my identity as a weapon. This isn't validation, it's illegal kidnapping. They're purposefully distorting my words to steal my life." Anonymous user 2 says, "Your friends are definitely talking about this. You're the serial girl now, and no one wants to be associated with that level of delusion. You've successfully nuked your entire social life for a TikTok trend. Was the unicorn cereal worth the social death and the twin bed at your mom's house?" OP's reply, "They just don't have the courage to live their truth like I do. I'd rather be the serial girl and be authentic than be a fake adult like all of them. Their social death just proves they were never real friends to begin with." Update 4. It's been 3 weeks since my last update, and I am currently living in my parents' guest room, which feels like a time-warped prison designed to punish me for my honesty. I have absolutely no access to my bank accounts because a judge granted a temporary conservatorship to my father, based almost entirely on my persistent, delusional refusal of adult status, and the legal threats I made against Justin. The court didn't see a brave woman living her truth. They saw a mentally incapacitated person who was a danger to her own financial stability. My truth has literally become the bars of my cell, and every time I try to act like an adult to get my rights back, they point to my trans age declarations as proof that I'm unstable and inconsistent. Justin is completely gone. He didn't even wait for the annulment to be finalized before he started seeing someone else, a real adult, as he reportedly told a mutual friend. It's sickening how quickly he replaced me with someone who probably just does the dishes and never challenges his narrow-minded worldview. My friends have all blocked me on everything, and the isolation is so absolute that I find myself talking to the posters on my wall just to hear a voice that isn't my mother's scolding tone. I tried to get a lawyer to fight the guardianship, but the irony is so thick it's suffocating. The lawyer told me that if I claim to be 12, I lack the legal capacity to sign a retainer or hire counsel. If I'm a child, I can't sue to be an adult. And if I'm an adult, I've already proven I'm too delusional to manage my own affairs. I'm trapped in a loop of my own making. A 35-year-old woman with a 9 p.m. bedtime, a flip phone, and a chaperone for whenever I want to go to the grocery store. I just wanted to be pampered, to have someone else carry the weight of the world while I explored my inner child, but instead I've been stripped of every right I ever had. There is no playfulness here, only the cold reality of being a ward of the state in all but name. I sit in this room with my kid-friendly snacks and my coloring books, realizing that I've traded my freedom for a label that no one, not even the people who claim to love me, is willing to respect without using it to destroy me. My identity didn't set me free. It gave everyone else the permission they needed to treat me like a problem to be managed. I am living in a bitter, uncomfortable prison of my own truth, and for the first time in my life I have absolutely no idea how to grow up out of it.